I wasn't even supposed to be apartment hunting on my own yet. The plan had always been to move in with my best friend, Melissa, after graduation. We'd joked about decorating, about building a wine rack out of old crates, about finally being adults together. But then her job offer got delayed, and suddenly, instead of both of us figuring things out side by side, I was left scrambling. I had already accepted a job as a veterinary technician in Brighton, about 2 hours from the town where I'd grown up. My parents had made it clear they expected me out by the first of the month. I told myself it was fine, even a good thing. The plan was simple. Find something cheap, something temporary, maybe just a 6-month lease until Melissa caught up. The problem was, I didn't have much money saved. Rent in Brighton wasn't exactly designed for a 23-year-old starting her very first job. That's how I ended up doom-scrolling Craigslist. Tired eyes burning at midnight, that was when I saw it. Room for rent, female roommate only, $225 a month. My first thought was that it had to be a scam. $225 in Brighton? Ridiculous. But I clicked anyway. The ad was almost insultingly short. 23-year-old nursing student looking for a female roommate. Utilities included, private bedroom and bathroom. No men, no pets. Quiet area. There was one photo, the front of a small, slightly run-down house. Nothing remarkable. Peeling paint, but not horror movie abandoned. The price was what punched me in the gut. Desperation makes you believe in things you know you shouldn't. So I wrote back. Hi, my name's Talia. I just accepted a job in the area, and I'm looking for a room to rent quickly. Your place looks perfect. Would love to stop by and see it. I'm respectful, quiet, and I don't smoke or have pets, thanks. 20 minutes later, a reply. Hey, I'm at work now, but can you come by tomorrow evening? Say around 8. I work nights, so that's when I'll be home. I'll text you the address. Just use the back door. The front door is broken, lol. No name. No signature. I stared at it longer than I should have, debating. But nurses worked weird shifts, right? So did vet techs. I told myself not to be paranoid. The next day dragged. I couldn't focus at work. Couldn't focus on packing. When Melissa called, I blurted it out. Craigslist? She said immediately. Talia, come on. That's literally how horror movies start. I laughed, but it was forced. I'll text you the address. I'll call you after. If I go missing, you'll have my last known location. Melissa didn't laugh either. I'm not kidding. Don't go alone. I promised her I'd be careful. By the time I pulled up at the house, it was 7:55 p.m. The place was farther out than I'd expected, edging into rural Brighton. No sidewalks, no streetlights. Houses spaced apart by fields of tall grass and half-empty lots. The sky had dipped into that purplish blue where shadows start to take over. The house itself was a sagging single-story, white siding stained gray, a crooked mailbox out front. A rotted porch swing creaked on its own in the wind. My headlights caught a note taped to the front door, handwritten, "Door broken. Please use back." I lingered there a second too long, unease crawling along my skin. The grass was knee-high. Every blind was drawn tight. The only light came from a faint yellow glow somewhere deep inside, probably the kitchen. My stomach twisted, but I reminded myself. Cheap rent, temporary, desperate. I walked around to the back. The screen door was cracked open. I knocked. A few seconds later, it swung wider, and it wasn't a woman. A man stood there, maybe late 40s. Stringy, shoulder-length hair, unshaven face, jeans sagging like they weren't his size, a faded denim shirt buttoned wrong. He looked like someone who'd been living rough for a long time. Hi, I managed. I think I have the wrong house. I was looking for... I think her name was... He cut me off smoothly. Nope, right house. I'm the landlord. She had to work late. Asked me to show you around. Come on in, I froze. Everything in me screamed no. But he smiled like it was nothing, casual, even friendly, and held the door open wider. The dim kitchen light stretched shadows across his face. She said you were coming, he added. His eyes flicked over me. Talia, right? I stopped breathing for a second. I hadn't told anyone but Melissa my name. Yes, I said slowly. He nodded too fast. She mentioned it, come on in. You'll love the place. The air hit me as soon as I stepped inside. Damp, stale, with an undercurrent of something sour, like old coffee grounds and mildew. The kitchen looked staged almost. No dishes, no clutter, no magnets on the fridge. Nothing that suggested anyone actually lived there. He walked ahead of me, his shoulders hunched, mumbling over his words. I try to keep it clean. Needs a little work, sure, but that's why the rent's cheap. His voice sounded almost rehearsed, like a bad salesman pitching something he didn't believe in. First, he showed me the bathroom. At a glance, it was spotless, but not in a lived-in way. No toothbrush on the counter. No shampoo or conditioner lined up in the shower. Just a single towel on the rack folded perfectly, like it had never been touched. Next was the room that was supposedly available. A bare mattress sat directly on the floor, no frame, no sheets. A single folding chair was tucked near the window, facing outward like someone had sat there for hours just staring into the overgrown yard. Where's her room? I asked, forcing my voice to stay steady. Oh, she's private, he said quickly. Doesn't like people in her space. He gestured down the hall toward a closed door at the very end. That one, right? I pressed, his jaw twitched. Is it just you and her living here? I asked. He hesitated too long, then said, yeah, just me, her. I mean, just her and me. He let out a laugh that died in the stale air, the kind of laugh someone gives when they've already been caught in a lie. My pulse was pounding in my ears. I took a small step back. I think I've seen enough. Thanks for showing me around. I'll email her later. His face shifted, lips tightening. Wait. One more thing. He moved toward the kitchen, toward a door I hadn't noticed before. Best part of the house. The basement. It's finished, well, mostly finished. Could be a game room, storage, real spacious. He swung the door open. It creaked heavy, and when it stopped, it blocked my path back to the screen door. Ladies first, he said, smiling without warmth. His hand swept toward the black void of the stairwell. I looked down. No light. Just wooden steps swallowed in absolute darkness. The smell that wafted up was faintly damp like wet earth. I couldn't even see the bottom. I forced a smile, trying to sound casual. Actually, I just got a text from my boyfriend. He's waiting outside. Didn't know he'd show up. I should go let him in. I hadn't even touched my phone. His smile faltered. He leaned against the frame, studying me. Boyfriend, huh? Thought you said you were living alone? I swallowed hard. Yeah, well, he likes to surprise me. Then I moved, sideways, quick but not panicked, squeezing past him where the open door met the wall. My back brushed the peeling paint as I slid out. Once I reached the screen door, I didn't hesitate. I shoved it open, stumbled into the night air, and ran. I didn't look back. I didn't walk. I sprinted through the tall grass, fumbling with my keys until I nearly dropped them. My hands shook so violently that it took 3 tries before I got the car unlocked. The moment I was inside, I slammed the door, locked it, and turned the ignition with shaking hands. Gravel spat under my tires as I tore down the dirt driveway, headlights bouncing over weeds and cracked asphalt. I didn't put on my seatbelt until I hit the main road. That night, sleep didn't come. Melissa stayed on the phone with me until nearly 2 in the morning as I told her every detail, my voice trembling, replaying it again and again. She was the one who convinced me to call the police. The report felt surreal. Me rattling off the address, forwarding screenshots of the emails, reading the phone number from the text aloud while my fingers shook. The next day, a detective called back. His voice was calm, but there was something in it that made my stomach drop. The listing's been pulled, he said, but we ran the address. That property's been empty for almost 8 months. Foreclosure. No utilities, no registered tenants. My mouth went dry. Then who? No registered landlord either, he said, cutting me off. I pressed the phone harder to my ear. What about inside? Did you check the basement? There was a pause, a long one. Finally, he said quietly, we did. Looks like someone's been staying there. We found blankets, trash, magazines, some not exactly legal, belts tied to a stick, a box with duct tape, and he cleared his throat. Fishing twine strung across the stairs about shin height, enough to trip someone if they went down in the dark. I said nothing. I couldn't. You were lucky, he added finally. His voice was softer now. Don't go into strangers' houses anymore, Craigslist or not. When I hung up, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I never searched Craigslist for housing again, and to this day I will not, under any circumstance, step into a basement without the lights on first. Sometimes, late at night, I think about her, the version of me in a darker story. The one who didn't invent a boyfriend on the spot. The one who took that step forward into the pitch black. The one who never made it out. And I think about her far more often than I should. I was never the kind of person who liked taking risks, especially when it came to money. I grew up with a single mom who worked 2 jobs just so we could keep the lights on and food in the fridge. That kind of childhood hardwires you with a sense of caution. You don't waste what you've got, and you don't gamble on what you can't afford to lose. That's why when I finally decided to buy my first used car, I didn't rush. I spent months researching, scrolling through forums, watching videos about common scams, and checking Kelley Blue Book values late at night. By then, I had just graduated college and moved to a small town called Redford, not far from Cincinnati. I was working at a local clinic, the kind of place where you never know when you'll get off your shift. Sometimes I left at midnight, sometimes later, and the buses in Redford shut down way too early. For 6 weeks I walked home in the dark, pepper spray clutched in my fist, every shadow making my pulse quicken. That was enough to push me into making the decision. I didn't need anything fancy, just something reliable, something to get me from point A to point B without breaking down on the side of the road. A brand new car was out of the question. I barely had enough saved to cover rent and a down payment on something used. I tried dealerships first, but even their cheapest options came with hidden problems. The salespeople had this practiced, too smooth way of talking, like they were performing for me instead of speaking honestly. It set my teeth on edge. That's when I turned to Craigslist. People warned me it was sketchy, but most of the ads I saw looked like they came from regular folks just trying to sell an old car. I told myself as long as I was careful, met in public, trusted my gut, I'd be fine. After a couple weeks of scrolling, I finally found one that seemed legit, a 1999 Honda Accord at $2,700 or best offer. The description was short but neat. Runs great. Just had a full inspection. Cold AC, reliable and clean. Selling because I'm moving out of state. Text only, please. No typos, no crazy promises. The pictures were clear and recent, the car looked solid. I texted the number, and within an hour someone named Jeremy wrote back. He said the car was still available, and he suggested meeting in Oak Ridge, about 10 minutes from Redford, at the parking lot of an old shopping plaza. We agreed on Friday at 3 p.m. That afternoon, when I pulled into the plaza, I spotted the Accord right away. It was parked out on the edge of the lot near a shuttered mattress store, far from the other cars. A man stood beside it. He looked exactly how he'd described himself in text. Around 6 feet tall, slim but not frail. Dark brown hair, glasses, a gray hoodie, and jeans. Late 30s, maybe? He had the kind of face you wouldn't remember in a crowd. "Hey, you must be Aaron," he said as I approached. His voice was calm, level. "Yeah," I replied, giving the car a quick once-over. "Looks just like the pictures." "It's been a good car," he said with a shrug. "I just don't need it anymore." We made small talk, miles on the odometer, how long he'd had it, and then I asked if I could take it for a quick drive. That's when things shifted. "Well," he said slowly, scratching the back of his neck, "I usually don't let people drive it themselves. Liability, you know?" That threw me. Well, it's kind of standard. I mean, you gotta know how it drives, right?" He held up a hand, still calm. "I get it, totally. But here's what I can do. I'll drive and you can ride shotgun. I'll take you around, show you how smooth it runs. If you like it, we can go from there." A warning bell went off in my head. It wasn't normal. But he didn't seem threatening. If anything, he seemed overly cautious. And part of me didn't want to come off as paranoid. After a few seconds of hesitation, I gave in. "All right," I said quietly. He unlocked the doors and I walked around to the passenger side. The second I sat down and clicked the seatbelt, I felt this ripple of unease in my chest, a decision I regret to this day. We pulled out of the lot, the engine humming steadily. I kept glancing out the window, making mental notes of landmarks in case I needed to find my way back. At first, the route was familiar. Oak Ridge Boulevard stretched ahead, lined with stores and gas stations I recognized. The car really did run well. Quiet, smooth shifts, no weird rattles. "How's the AC?" I asked, trying to keep things light. He flicked it on. Cold air blasted my face. "Works fine," he said. "So where are we headed?" I asked, watching him. "Just a loop," he said evenly. "I'll take you down toward the river and back." It sounded reasonable, so I didn't push it. But after 10 minutes, I realized we hadn't turned once. The strip malls and convenience stores had disappeared, replaced by stretches of trees. The sidewalks had ended. Houses were thinning out. "Hey," I said, forcing a laugh. "You can turn around whenever." I got a good feel for the car. Jeremy didn't answer. He kept his eyes fixed on the road, one hand on the wheel, the other resting on the gear shift. He didn't even glance at me. You hear me? I asked again, my voice sharper this time. I asked again, sharper this time. My voice sounded thinner than I wanted it to. He finally muttered, "Yeah, I just want to show you the highway handling." But something in his voice was wrong. It was clipped, mechanical, like he was repeating lines in a play he no longer cared about. My stomach tightened. I pulled out my phone, thumb flicking over the screen. 1 bar, then none. No service, and can you just turn around? I said, forcing steadiness into my voice. I need to get back soon. Just a minute, he replied. Still calm, still even. But there was an edge under the words. Something steely, rehearsed. My gut twisted harder. Minutes dragged. 5, maybe more. We turned off the main road onto a smaller one. No street signs. No houses, no other cars. Just 2 lanes cutting deeper into the trees. Jeremy, I said, this time letting the fear bleed through. I need to get back. He didn't even flick his eyes toward me. I reached for the window control, thumb pressing hard. Nothing. I tried again. Dead. You disabled the window, I said flatly. No answer. His silence was deliberate now, heavy. It was like he wanted me to feel it. My pulse thudded against my ribs. My palms grew damp, but I fought to keep my voice level. I want to get out. Turn the car around, now. Nothing. The road hummed beneath the tires, 40 miles an hour at least. Jumping wasn't an option. Fighting wasn't either. He was bigger, stronger, and I had nowhere to go. My phone was still in my lap, my only tether, though it mocked me with its blank signal bar. I clenched it hard, praying for a flicker of reception. Then I saw it. Up ahead on the shoulder, a police cruiser. At first it looked abandoned, parked in a lonely stretch where the woods pressed close to the asphalt. But it was real. My last chance. I jabbed the window button again, nothing, so I did the only thing left. I raised both arms and waved frantically through the glass. Jeremy snapped. What the hell are you doing? Stop that. His hand shot across the seat, fingers clamping around my wrist. The car jerked right, tires thudding over the shoulder line. My heart leapt. I yanked free and kept waving, desperate, like my life depended on it, because it did. We sped past the cruiser. For a second that felt like eternity, nothing happened. My throat closed in despair. Then in the rearview mirror I saw blue lights ignite. The patrol car roared to life and pulled out fast. Jeremy cursed, slamming his palm against the steering wheel. God damn it. What the hell is wrong with you? I didn't answer. I stared straight ahead, gripping my phone so tight my knuckles ached, praying he wouldn't do something desperate. He slowed, then pulled onto the shoulder. Gravel crunched beneath the tires. The cop car slid in behind us, lights still flashing. A tall officer with a square jaw stepped out and approached Jeremy's side. His hand rested near his holster. What's going on here? He asked evenly. Jeremy spoke fast. Too fast. Test drive! She freaked out. Officer, I don't know what she's doing. The officer's eyes flicked to me. My hands shook, but my voice came out clear. I told him I wanted to go back 20 minutes ago. He wouldn't stop. I didn't feel safe. The officer's expression hardened. He looked back at Jeremy. Sir, step out of the vehicle. For a moment, I thought Jeremy would argue. His jaw worked, his nostrils flared. But then he popped the door open and stepped out. The officer led him toward the back of the car. Another cruiser pulled up within minutes. The second officer approached me, his tone softer. Are you all right? I think so, I whispered. My throat felt dry. I just want to go back to my car. They opened the door and guided me out. My legs wobbled as I stood. They had me step aside while they checked Jeremy's ID, running his information against their system. One of them asked gently if he'd touched me, restrained me, hurt me in any way. I told him no, just that I'd been scared, terrified. Eventually they came back with their verdict. No warrants, no outstanding charges. Legally, they said, there wasn't enough to hold him. He hadn't locked the doors. He hadn't laid a hand on me until that wrist grab. Technically, he hadn't abducted me, so they told him to leave. Gave him a warning not to contact me again. The officers gave me a ride back to the plaza, where my car still sat like a beacon of safety. They waited until I unlocked it and slid inside, watching until I drove off. At home, I sank onto the couch. I didn't cry, didn't scream. I just sat there numb, realizing how close I'd come to disappearing into the dark with a stranger. I reported the listing to Craigslist, blocked Jeremy's number, deleted the app, never saw him again. But for weeks after, I'd wake up at night certain I'd heard a car rolling up my driveway. I checked the locks twice, then 3 times. I changed my number. I stopped telling people where I lived. I still don't know what Jeremy intended, and I don't want to. All I know is this: if that police cruiser hadn't been parked on that road at that exact moment, I wouldn't be here to tell this story. I grew up in a quiet little neighborhood on the edge of Renfield, the kind of place where cracked sidewalks told stories of decades-old tree roots pushing their way through concrete, and where chain-link fences divided one brick bungalow from another. It wasn't the kind of neighborhood where kids swarmed the streets. There weren't many of us, and even fewer who cared about hockey the way I did. That summer, I was 14. 14 is a strange age. You're too young to get a real job, but too restless to sit inside all day, playing the same NHL game on Xbox while the sun beats down outside. So I played street hockey. Almost every evening, I'd drag my stick and battered gear to the street. My shin pads were falling apart. The webbing of my baseball glove was loose, and my wooden stick had more splinters than blade. But I loved it. What I wanted more than anything was real goalie equipment. My own. We didn't have money for that. Not even close. So I did what I thought was smart. I went online. My cousin once bragged about scoring a used skateboard cheap on Craigslist, so I figured, why not me? I spent hours at our clunky family desktop in the living room scrolling through the sporting goods listings. And then I saw it. Goalie set, pads, blocker, glove, stick. 50 obio, my heart jumped. I clicked, half expecting it to be fake. But the pictures were real. Not stock photos, these were taken on some garage floor. Vaughn pads, a Bauer stick, even a catcher that didn't look torn up. They weren't new, but to me they might as well have been pro gear. Still, $50 for all of it? It sounded impossible. I texted the number anyway. Hi, I'm interested in the goalie equipment. Is it still available? The reply came almost immediately. Yep, still have it. You play goalie? I typed back, yeah, I'm 14, just getting into it seriously. The second I hit send, I regretted being honest. Maybe I should have said I was older. But lying felt heavier than admitting my age. The response gave me pause. 14, that's awesome. Dedication starts young. Glad to see that. It didn't scream danger to me, not yet, but it made something in my gut twitch. I asked for an address, figuring maybe I could get my dad to drive me or at least bike there. But the seller had another idea. Where are you located? I can drive out and meet you. Easier that way. Don't want you biking with all that gear. I told him Crestwood. Perfect. Know the Valley Ridge Mall? I did. It was only 2 blocks from my house. Safe enough, I thought. We can meet in the mall lot tomorrow night, say around 8, cooler in the evening. Late July, sunset wasn't until almost 9. That gave me comfort. I said yes, I didn't tell my parents. Looking back now, that was the dumbest thing I've ever done. The next evening, around 7:50, I slipped out. I told my mom I was meeting a friend at the park. I didn't even have the full $50, just a 20 for my birthday. I figured maybe I could haggle. The Valley Ridge Mall was practically deserted by then. A few lonely cars sat scattered in the huge parking lot. The sun was low, turning the asphalt into a patchwork of long shadows. The overhead lamps hadn't clicked on yet. The air was heavy and still. I waited near the back of the lot where we'd agreed. Minutes crawled. 07. A sharp beep cut the silence. Not loud, but close. I turned and saw it. A white van 3 rows away. No decals, no lettering. Rust eating at the bottom panels. The engine idled, a low growl vibrating through the quiet lot. The passenger window was cracked, but I couldn't make out anyone inside. Then my phone buzzed. Hey, I'm in the white van. Come over, I've got the stuff in the back. My throat went dry. Every warning my dad ever drilled into me about strangers screamed inside my skull. My thumb hovered over the screen as my heart hammered against my ribs. I forced my hand steady enough to text. Can you bring it out? I just want to see the stuff before anything. A pause. Then the reply lit up my screen. Nah, it's packed tight. Just come take a quick look. Seconds later, another. Takes 2 seconds. I promise. And another. "You're not scared, are you?" That last message made my chest seize. The words weren't just casual. They felt needling, like he wanted me to prove something. Something was wrong. I didn't know if it was his tone, the rapid-fire texts, or just some instinct clawing at me, but every nerve in my body screamed to move. I didn't reply. Instead, I started backing away, slow at first, trying not to draw attention. Then I turned and walked faster. My sneakers slapped against the asphalt too loud in the dead parking lot. That's when I heard it. The van's engine roared louder. I whipped my head around. The white van was pulling out of its spot. My phone buzzed again. "Where are you going?" "Nope, no," I bolted, heart pounding so hard it made my vision blur. I sprinted across the lot onto the sidewalk and straight across the road without looking. Horns could have blared, cars could have come, I wouldn't have noticed. I ducked into the alley behind the post office, gravel crunching under my shoes, my breath jagged and ragged. Panic clawed at me. I couldn't go home. If they followed me, they'd know where I lived. So I veered into someone's side yard, vaulted a low wooden fence, and wedged myself in the narrow strip of shadow between a shed and a bush. My chest burned, but I forced myself to breathe quietly, shallow. The van came. I heard it before I saw it, gravel shifting under slow, rolling tires. It crept past the alley's mouth like a predator searching the brush. This time I saw them clearly, two figures. The driver and someone else slouched in the passenger seat who hadn't been there before. I froze. Didn't move. Didn't blink. My phone vibrated in my pocket again, but I didn't dare check it. The van rolled by, pausing for a moment too long, then finally turned the corner at the end of the block. Gone. Still, I stayed put another 10 minutes, heart racing, until the night air chilled my sweat. Then I slipped out, took the long way, and sprinted home from the opposite direction. When I burst through the front door, I must have looked pale as death. My parents were on the couch watching TV. My mom shot up, eyes wide. "Jesus, what happened to you?" I tried to speak, but the words tangled in my throat. Finally, I stammered, "A guy," tried to get me into a van. They exploded. My dad demanded details, everything. Screenshots, the listing, the number. But when we checked, the ad was gone, deleted. All I had were the texts. We called the police. An officer came, took down my statement. But what was there really? No plate number, no clear faces, no confirmed crime. Just a white van, a shaken 14-year-old, and a handful of ominous texts. That night, sleep was impossible. I lay tossing, staring at the ceiling until the numbers on my clock read 2:13 a.m. I finally got up for water. The house was silent, shadows stretching long and thin in the hall. As I passed the front window, something pulled me to look. I nudged the curtain aside just an inch. A white van, parked across the street. Engine humming, headlights dark. My stomach dropped. I ducked beneath the window, heart hammering so loud it felt like the whole room could hear. Seconds passed like hours. I forced myself to peek again. The van pulled away, slowly, silently, then gone. I never saw it again. I never bought another thing off Craigslist either. Even now, as an adult, whenever I pass a white van on the road, my chest tightens and for a split second I'm 14 again, hiding behind a stranger's shed, praying to stay unseen. I don't know who those men were. I don't know if they stumbled onto me by chance or if I was chosen. But I do know this. If I had stepped into that van, I wouldn't be here to tell you this story. I've always had a weakness for bargains. Growing up, money was tight, really tight. Dad spent his days hauling drywall and pouring concrete, coming home with dust ground into his skin. Mom scrubbed other people's kitchens and bathrooms for hours just to make ends meet. We never starved, but extras were a luxury. That kind of upbringing burns thrift into your bones. Coupons, thrift stores, clearance bins. I learned to sniff out a deal like a bloodhound. So when I got my own place last year, Craigslist became my best friend. It felt like a game, piecing together my apartment with cast-offs and leftovers. And I wasn't stupid. I knew the site could attract creeps and scammers. But I had my rules. Meet in public, don't flash cash, trust my gut. For months it worked fine. Until I tried to buy a TV. I'd just moved into Dover Heights, this working-class neighborhood outside Ridgeport. The building I picked wasn't much to look at. peeling paint, a buzzer that worked half the time, and paper-thin walls. But the rent was low, and getting it had taken months of saving, double shifts, and skipping dinners. Honestly, I was proud. My space was bare, mattress on the floor, second-hand couch, tiny kitchenette. But it was mine. The only thing missing was a TV. After work, sitting in silence on that sagging couch made the apartment feel lonelier than it was. So I started browsing Craigslist, scrolling past junk until I spotted it. A 42-inch LG smart TV. Lightly used, perfect condition, the ad said. Photos showed a clean screen. No scratches, menu working. The price, $180, wasn't suspiciously cheap, but way less than retail. The seller's name was Chris. A number was listed. So I texted, me. Hey, saw your LG TV ad. Still available? Chris, yep, you want it? Ours maybe. Can I check it out first? Chris, sure, tomorrow night 9 p.m. I'm in Southridge, 12 on to 21 Brighton Ave. Southridge wasn't exactly known for charm, but it wasn't Ridgeport's worst neighborhood either. I figured I'd drag a friend along. Except the next evening everyone I asked was busy and I worked later than planned. By the time I was free, it was too late to reschedule. I didn't want to lose the deal. Against my better judgment, I decided to go alone. The drive took about 25 minutes. Street by street, Southridge grew rougher. Boarded-up shops, chain-link fences sagging into weeds, flickering lamps that left more darkness than light. Houses looked tired, cluttered with rusted bikes, broken chairs, trash bags by the curb. I gripped the wheel tighter, telling myself not to judge. Dover Heights wasn't exactly pristine either. At 8:55, I pulled up to 12 and 21 Brighton Ave. A squat one-story house sat hunched on the lot. The paint peeled in scabs and the screen door leaned half off its hinges. Only a dim porch light glowed, casting a weak yellow halo. My stomach tightened, but I killed the engine and sent a quick text. Me. Here. Chris. Come up. Front door's open. That should have been my sign to bail. Who leaves the door unlocked at night for a stranger? But I ignored the prickle in my gut, locked my car, and walked the cracked path to the porch. The front door swung open before I could even knock. A man stood there, early 30s maybe. Black t-shirt, worn jeans, a baseball cap tugged low. He was lean, about 6 feet. But what stuck with me was the stiffness in his shoulders, like he was coiled tight while trying to act casual. Chris? I asked. He gave a curt nod. You here for the TV? Yeah. Come in, he said, stepping aside. I hesitated, then crossed the threshold. The living room smelled faintly of cigarettes and damp, like water damage hiding under old carpet. The air felt heavy, stale, as though no window had been opened in years. The carpet was mottled with dark stains, patches where years of spills had sunk deep and never been scrubbed out. The furniture sagged in the corners. Grimy fabric rubbed threadbare, cushions carrying that greasy sheen that comes from never being cleaned. And there, right in the middle of the floor, sat a television, already plugged into the wall. But it wasn't the one from the ad. This screen was smaller, maybe 36 inches, and thicker, clunkier. The frame wasn't slim or sleek like the photos I'd studied. Instead of the sharp LG logo, a crooked little sticker on the bottom corner read, Dynamic. The font looked cheap, like something from a discount store brand I'd never heard of. The bezel was chunkier, the surface dotted with greasy smudges, and one of the HDMI ports sagged like it had been forced in the wrong way too many times. Behind me, the door clicked shut. I swallowed, trying to keep my voice steady. This the TV? Chris nodded. Yes, it works fine. You got the cash? I didn't reach for my wallet. Instead, I crouched down, squinting at the back panel, my fingers brushing the scratched plastic. I wasn't trying to stall, I just wanted to be sure. This doesn't look like the one from the pictures, I said carefully. The ad said LG. His reply came sharp, too quick. It's the same one. I glanced up. His jaw had tightened, the shadow of his cap hiding his eyes, but I could see the way they narrowed at me. No, I said slowly. It's not. Chris took a step closer, his voice firmer, pushing. It is. Maybe you remembered it wrong. I shook my head. No, I remember exactly. This isn't it. Something flickered across his face, anger maybe, or panic. But then he bent suddenly, scooping the TV up in both arms as though to thrust it into mine. It works. Take it. A deal's a deal. I felt myself inching back, the weight of the room pressing in. I'm not buying this. I came for an LG. This is junk. his expression soured, eyes flashing. "You came here. You made the deal. Don't waste my time." "I'm not wasting anything," I shot back, moving toward the door now, heart climbing higher into my throat. "You tried to scam me. I'm leaving." He followed, still clutching the TV, his voice dropping into something darker. "Give me my money." I ignored him, grabbing the doorknob and pulling it open. The cool night air rushed in like relief, but Chris stayed on me, stepping right out onto the porch behind me. "Hey!" His voice cracked loud through the street. "Where the hell you going? You think you can come into my house and waste my time?" I didn't answer. My chest thudded, breath short and shallow as I hurried down the rotting porch steps. The lawn crunched dry beneath my shoes. Then, slam, the door snapped shut behind us. For a second, I thought he'd given up. But when I risked a glance back, he was coming after me, moving fast. TV still in his arms like it weighed nothing. I broke into a sprint. My keys shook in my hand as I fumbled at the car door. My fingers slipped, then caught, unlocking it at last. I dove inside, slammed the lock down, and only then did I dare look up. Chris was right there, closing the gap between us, his shape cutting across the glow of my headlights. My hands trembled as I twisted the key. The engine roared awake, thank God, and I threw the car into drive. He lunged into the street right in front of me, but I jerked the wheel, swerving past him, tires shrieking against the asphalt. I didn't look back. When I finally pulled into my building's lot, I stayed in the driver's seat for 10 long minutes, chest heaving, hands still shaking against the wheel. My mind kept replaying it. The porch light, the tension in his voice, the way he chased me down like prey. I pulled out my phone. The Craigslist ad was still up, smiling photos of that slick 42-inch LG mocking me. I flagged it, reported it, blocked his number. But deleting it didn't erase the image of him charging after me, his face twisted with anger, that busted TV clutched in his arms. People would probably say I was stupid for going alone. Maybe I was. But I wasn't some reckless teenager. I was 26, cautious, skeptical, careful. I followed the rules, or thought I did. And still I almost got robbed. Maybe worse, that's what haunts me most, this what-ifs. What if he'd had a weapon? What if I'd hesitated longer? What if the car hadn't started? Now I only meet sellers in public. Grocery store parking lots, police station lobbies, anywhere with cameras and people nearby. And if anyone ever suggests I come into their home again, I'm gone. The money isn't worth it. No deal ever is. I never thought something as ordinary as trying to buy a desk could unravel into one of the most unnerving nights of my life. I was 19 then, gearing up for my second year at Pine Brook State University, a mid-sized school tucked deep into the hills of northern Michigan. My freshman year, I'd lived in a cramped dorm with my roommate Cassie. Over late-night study sessions and too many shared bowls of instant ramen, we'd become inseparable. So when sophomore year rolled around, we agreed to rent a little off-campus house together. It wasn't anything impressive, just 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen frozen in the early 90s, and a small living room with dingy blinds that looked like they hadn't been changed since the Clinton administration. But it was ours. The place sat on a quiet street, maybe 15 minutes from campus, rent cheap enough that we could almost breathe easy. The catch? It came completely empty. No couch, no beds, not even a dining table to eat at. That summer, while staying at our parents' homes, we started collecting furniture piece by piece, relying mostly on Craigslist. Money was tight, so free and dirt cheap were the magic words. We dragged home a wobbly armchair, a chipped coffee table, and even a tossed-out mattress that looked questionably clean, but still usable. Cassie got lucky and found a desk at a yard sale back near her hometown. I wasn't so lucky. That changed about 3 weeks before fall semester. It was a Thursday afternoon. I was sprawled on my bed in my parents' house, absent-mindedly scrolling Craigslist while texting Cassie about move-in plans. Most of the listings were junk, particle board trash, or desks priced way too high. Then one caught my eye. Solid wood, modern design, a built-in bookshelf. The picture showed it beside a sunny window, the kind of desk that practically begged for late-night coffee and stacks of open books. Price and $25. I clicked the post. The seller was listed as Mark T., no last name, just an initial. The description was bare. Used desk. Sturdy. Good condition. Need gone ASAP. First come, first serve. At the bottom was a phone number, no email. I texted immediately. Hi, is the desk still available? Minutes later, my phone buzzed. Yes. Can you come tomorrow between 6 and 9 p.m.? I typed back that I could. But then his messages shifted. What's your name? How old are you? Why do you want this desk? I just stared at the screen, frowning. I showed Cassie the texts and she wrinkled her nose. Why does some guy need to know how old you are to sell a piece of furniture? That's creepy as hell. I laughed it off, maybe too quickly. I'd been online long enough to know people could be awkward or blunt in weird ways. I texted back my first name, told him I was 19 and mentioned I needed the desk for my college house. The reply came fast. Sounds good. My name's Mark Travis. Address is 1127 Holloway Lane, Brookwood. Come alone. I'll help you carry it. That last part made my stomach flip. Come alone. I texted back. I'll be bringing a friend. Just FYI, his answer was short, final. No need, just you, that stuck with me. And Cassie hated it. That's not normal. Seriously, people don't insist you come alone unless they're planning something. I wanted to shrug it off. The truth was I really wanted the desk. And I had my mom's SUV for the weekend, seats folded down, plenty of room. I convinced myself it was just an old guy being socially awkward, maybe not used to texting. Cassie wasn't convinced. Fine, but I'm going with you. I'll stay outside if you want, but I'm not letting you walk into some stranger's house alone. I agreed, grateful even if I didn't admit it out loud. The next evening, we set off toward Brookwood, a small suburb about 25 minutes from our new house. As we drove, the streets narrowed, lined with dense woods and overgrown hedges. The GPS led us up a steep curve. The houses grew farther apart, the streetlights thinner, until the whole area felt like it was pressing inward. Holloway Lane sat tucked at the end of a cul-de-sac, half hidden by towering evergreens. It was a squat one-story ranch with fading beige siding, shutters peeling from neglect, and a lawn that looked like it hadn't seen a mower in months. A rusting red pickup truck slumped in the driveway. We pulled up to the curb. The clock read a little after 6:30 p.m., dusk creeping across the sky. I glanced at Cassie, forcing a small smile I didn't quite feel. Wait here. I'll text you if I need help moving it. Cassie shot me a look like I'd just lost my mind. Her arms crossed, jaw set. 5 minutes, she said flatly. If you're not back out here, I'm knocking. I nodded, trying to hide the nerves crawling up my spine. Phone in hand, I walked up the narrow concrete path to the door. The porch groaned under my weight, boards flexing with every step. I knocked once. It opened after a pause. The man who appeared wasn't what I had pictured at all. His gray hair stuck out in greasy tufts, framing a hollow face half buried in a wiry beard. His hoodie sagged off his thin frame, stained and wrinkled, as if it hadn't been washed in weeks. The stale stench of cigarettes and warm beer wafted from the doorway, sour and thick. You the one here for the desk? He asked, his voice gravelly, eyes set deep in shadow. Yeah, I said, forcing a smile I didn't feel. I'm Emily. He gave a slow nod. Come on in. It's downstairs. Downstairs. I hesitated, tilting my head. You couldn't bring it up? I tried to keep it casual, light. He shrugged. Back's bad. Figured we'd carry it together. Behind him, the living room was dim, blinds drawn tight. No sign of a desk anywhere. Every instinct in me told me to leave, but my feet betrayed me. I stepped inside. The door shut behind me with a soft, deliberate click. Without another word, he walked ahead, cutting through the living room toward a door off the kitchen. He opened it, revealing a narrow staircase swallowed in darkness. Down here, he said, starting the descent. I froze at the top. The smell of mold wafted up, sharp and damp. Something in me screamed not to move, but then his footsteps creaked further down, and against all logic, I followed. Concrete met my shoes at the bottom. A single bulb swung faintly overhead, its light thin and sickly. Boxes lay stacked in uneven piles. Some split open to reveal old tools and clothing that smelled of mildew. There, he muttered, pointing. In the far corner, facing the wall, was the desk, the same one from the pictures down to the shelf. But this wasn't the bright, sunlit room I'd seen online. This was a basement tomb. Looks good, I said cautiously, my voice too high, too thin. Is it just the desk, or I stopped? He wasn't listening. He'd already turned, climbing the stairs without a word. I stood frozen, my pulse hammered. Then, cutting through the stillness, came a knock from upstairs. Loud, deliberate. He stopped halfway up, twisted his head toward me, his eyes sharp. "Who's that?" He barked, my throat closed. I didn't answer. He spun, glaring, then bolted up the stairs 2 at a time. Panic surged. I chased after him, heart rattling in my chest. By the time I hit the living room, he was already at the door, wrenching it open. Cassie stood on the porch, arms planted at her sides. "I told you to come alone," he growled. His body filled the doorway, his voice low and dangerous. "I'm her roommate," Cassie said evenly, not budging. "We're leaving." He stepped forward, looming, his shadow stretching across her. "You weren't invited." Cassie didn't blink. "Neither were you into our lives. Move." Adrenaline cut through me. I darted past him, grabbed Cassie's arm, and together we sprinted across the patchy lawn. Behind us, his voice rose, cracking into a ragged, rage-filled screech. We didn't look back. Inside the car, Cassie slammed the locks down and tore off, tires spitting gravel. My chest ached from how hard my heart pounded. A few blocks away, when the silence finally caught up with us, I whispered, "Thank you." Cassie glanced at me, her face pale, eyes wide with lingering fear. I was knocking for like 2 minutes. No one answered. It just felt wrong. Back home, I checked Craigslist. The listing was gone. The number blocked me. I reported everything, the post, the address, his name. Nothing ever came of it, but I still think about it. What if Cassie hadn't knocked? What if I had gone alone? What if I'd stepped deeper into that basement? I never used Craigslist again, and I never got that desk. I was 19 when it happened. Old enough to think I knew better, but not old enough to recognize when something was too good to be true. That summer, I had just finished my first year of university and come back to Ridgeville, a small, quiet suburb outside Portland where I'd grown up. My parents had split when I was 15, and since then I'd bounced between their 2 houses. Mom was strict, always nervous about what could go wrong, while Dad had this figure-it-out-for-yourself philosophy. I loved them both, but Dad's place always felt easier to breathe in. That summer I was staying with him, hoping to scrape together some money for a beat-up car. Problem was, Ridgeville wasn't hiring. Not fast food, not landscaping, not even the gas station down the road. By mid-June, I had maybe $80 left in my account, and my frustration was starting to eat away at my judgment. One night, sitting on my bed with my laptop balanced on my knees, I scrolled through Craigslist hoping for anything. Under domestic gigs, a post caught my eye. House sitter needed. 2 nights. Quiet home. Good pay. I clicked before I even thought. The description was short. Looking for someone trustworthy to stay in my home while I'm away for the weekend. Nothing major required. Just your presence. No pets, no chores. $400 cash. Friday and Saturday night. Email if interested. $400. For doing literally nothing. I stared at the low-res photos attached. A 1-story home, plain but clean, a little living room, kitchen, guest room. No red flags, no weird vibe, just a house. The money, though, that was the hook. I typed out a quick email. "Hi, I'm available both nights. Can stay over. Let me know the details." 10 minutes later, my inbox pinged. The reply was from a man named Steven. He said he was in his 40s, worked in IT, and had to leave town for a family emergency. His message was polite, almost stiff, but normal enough. "You seem like a good fit. Still interested?" I said yes. We traded a few texts. I asked for the address, and he told me it was in North Hill, about 15 minutes from my dad's place. He suggested I come by Friday evening so he could show me around before leaving. I didn't tell my parents. Mom would have freaked, demanded a background check and probably a blood test. Dad would have shrugged, but I didn't want him asking questions either. So I told him I'd be crashing at a friend's house for a couple of nights. Friday came. I packed a small duffel, just clothes, toiletries, charger, and a paperback I wasn't really planning on reading. Driving through North Hill, I noticed how different it felt from the rest of town. Narrow streets, cracked sidewalks, the kind of streetlights that gave off more shadow than glow. Stephen's house was halfway down the block, a faded green single-story with hedges swallowing the porch. One of the steps sagged as I walked up. I knocked, and after a moment the door creaked open. Stephen looked ordinary. Mid-40s, khakis, a faded polo, thin glasses slipping down his nose. His build was lean, almost wiry, and he wore this polite, slightly awkward smile. "You must be James," he said, extending a hand. His grip was firm but a little too quick to let go. "Yeah, thanks for having me," I replied, trying to sound casual. "Come in," he said, stepping aside. The house was clean but strange in its emptiness. No family photos, no art, just bare walls. The living room had a couch, a TV, a small dining table, and a single bookshelf filled with old paperbacks and thick technical manuals. It didn't smell bad, just unlived in, like no one had made memories there. "This is the guest room," Stephen said, leading me down the hallway. He opened a plain door to a small room with a neatly made bed, a dresser, and nothing else. "You'll stay here. Feel free to use the kitchen, the bathroom, whatever you need," Stephen said as he walked me down the narrow hallway. His tone was casual, almost rehearsed. "I'll be heading out in about an hour." I glanced at the layout. "So only 2 bedrooms?" I asked. "Yeah," he replied almost too quickly. "Laundry's down in the basement. But you won't need to go down there." Something about the way he said it made my skin prickle, but I forced a smile. "Got it." He handed me a single house key on a cheap plastic keychain. "Just lock the doors at night. That's it. Like I told you, I've had some break-ins before. I feel better knowing someone's here." I nodded. $400 still sounded like an amazing deal. At 6:30, Stephen left. I watched through the front window as his old Honda Civic, Washington plates, rolled down the street and disappeared. And then it was just me. The first evening was ordinary, almost boring. I microwaved a pack of noodles I'd brought, half-watched a Netflix show on my laptop, and scrolled my phone endlessly. Out of restlessness, I wandered the house. I opened kitchen drawers, peeked through the bathroom cabinet, and ran my fingers across the spines of the paperbacks on his shelf. But everywhere I looked, the place felt empty. No photos, no notes on the fridge, no sign of anyone who actually lived there. By 10:30, I was brushing my teeth and locking up for the night. Both front and back doors clicked shut under my hand. I slipped into the guest bed, the sheets stiff and cold with that unused smell. That's when I heard it. A creak. Not the faint snap of a board settling, but something heavier, deliberate. It came from directly beneath me. I froze in bed, staring into the dark. Another creak followed, then another, spaced apart. Slow, careful, like someone was testing each step. My pulse started hammering. Old houses make noises, I told myself. That's all. But then came the sound that stripped the excuse away, the unmistakable thud of a footfall. A person walking in the basement. I slipped out of bed, phone clutched tight in my hand, and tiptoed into the hallway. Holding my breath, I listened. At first, silence. Then thud-thud, a pause. Then a faint dragging sound. My chest tightened. I backed into the guest room and closed the door, turning the knob slowly so it wouldn't click. My hands trembled as I typed out a message. "Hey man, I think I heard something from the basement. Could be pipes or something, but just wanted to check." The reply came almost immediately. "That's probably Dennis. He stays downstairs. Don't worry, he keeps to himself." I stared at the screen, rereading it 3 times. "Dennis?" I texted back. "You didn't mention a roommate." A bubble appeared, then vanished, then appeared again. Finally, his response, "Sorry, yeah. I forgot, he's quiet. Basement has its own entrance, you probably won't even see him." Forgot? Who forgets to mention someone living in their house? My stomach twisted, but I didn't know what else to do. I stayed in the guest room with the lights on, heart racing until exhaustion finally dragged me into an uneasy sleep. Around 2 a.m., I woke with a jolt. The doorknob was turning, slowly, quietly, like someone was testing how far they could go without me hearing. Adrenaline surged. "Hey!" I shouted, my voice cracking. "What the hell?" The knob froze. I jumped out of bed, yanked the door open, nothing. The hallway was empty, light still glowing. The silence pressed in around me, thick and suffocating. I flipped on every switch I could find, moving from room to room. My chest felt like it was collapsing in on itself. The basement door was shut, but when I looked closer, something hit me hard. There was no lock. Shaking, I texted Stephen again. Someone just tried my door. "I'm seriously not okay with this." No reply. That was it. I shoved my clothes into my duffel, zipped it with shaking hands, and was in my car by 2:30. My headlights cut across that sagging porch step as I drove away, not looking back. The next morning, I tried pulling up the Craigslist listing to show a friend. Gone. Like it had never existed. I called Steven's number, straight to voicemail. By afternoon, curiosity got the better of me. Against my better judgment, I drove past the house. No car in the driveway. No mail in the box. The front door sat slightly open, swaying just enough to show it wasn't latched. I didn't stop. I didn't even slow down. I never collected that $400, didn't care. I was just grateful I left when I did. Looking back now, I don't think there ever was a Steven. And Dennis? If he existed at all, I don't want to know. That house might not have even belonged to the man I met. Whatever lived in that basement, or pretended to, wanted me upstairs, alone. And since that night, I've never touched Craigslist again. I was trying to sell a dining room set on Craigslist, not because I desperately needed the money. It wasn't like that. I just wanted it gone. After my mom passed, I inherited the farmhouse, and with it came a house full of furniture that belonged to her world, not mine. The dining set was the hardest to look at. Solid oak, 6 chairs, a leaf extension, still carrying the faint trace of lemon polish and the ghosts of Sunday pot roasts that seemed baked right into the wood. It had sat silent and unused for over a year, filling the dining room with a kind of heavy presence. I listed it for $200, fair for its quality, though I noted I was slightly negotiable. I made sure the photos were good, bright light, clean lines, even a couple of shots with a measuring tape laid across for scale. Weeks passed, though, with little interest. The farmhouse was tucked too far outside of Marlow Creek, and Craigslist was all but dead in places like this. I stopped checking the ad. Eventually, I forgot it was even there. Then came the call. It was just after 9 at night, and I was half dozing through a rerun of Forensic Files. The buzz of my phone startled me awake. Unknown number. Normally, I would have ignored it that late, but something, I can't say what, told me to answer. Hello? My voice came out groggy. There was silence, just long enough for me to think no one was there. Then a man spoke, male, thin, raspy. A voice that felt off. And still got the table? I sat up straighter. Yeah, I do. It's in great shape. Pause, too long. Is it heavy? Pretty heavy, yeah. Solid oak. I want to come see it. I got cash. You home tonight? The way he leaned on those words, you home tonight, made something twist inside me. A warning bell. But then I told myself I was overthinking. Maybe he was just an older guy, nervous about buying something online. Marlow Creek was small. People had their quirks. Sure, I said finally. I'm about 20 minutes south of Marlow Creek. Want me to give you the address? Another pause. Then flatly, I know where that is. I'll be there in an hour. The line went dead. No goodbye. I pushed off the couch, uneasy, and walked to the dining room, gave the table one last dusting, wiped the chair backs, adjusted the fake floral centerpiece. My eyes kept drifting to the clock. 1 hour, he'd said. But at 9:16, 17 minutes after the call, the doorbell rang. The porch light spilled a warped shadow across the frosted glass. My chest tightened as I opened the door. He was taller than I expected. At least 6'4", rail thin, the kind of gaunt that makes you think of hunger or sickness. His white undershirt was stained yellow at the armpits and collar. His jeans sagged with holes at the knees, and his shoes didn't even match. One brown, one black. His gray hair stuck out in wild, patchy tufts, and his mustache looked dipped in tobacco spit. But it was his eyes that stopped me cold. Bloodshot, jittery, something wild and feral flickering in them. Evening, he rasped, the same voice from the phone. Every instinct screamed at me not to let him in, not to let that smell, that stare, that presence pass the threshold. But I froze, caught between manners and fear. So I stepped aside. The dining room's just through there, I managed. He didn't thank me, didn't smile, just shuffled inside, slow, careful, like he was casing the place. His long, yellowed nails dragged across the wood as he touched the table, then slid under it, then over the chairs one by one. A low humming noise slipped out of him as he inspected, vibrating through the quiet room. It wasn't a whistle, not even a hum you could call music. Just noise, ragged and uneven, like someone trying and failing to imitate a human. I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to stay steady. I'm asking $200, but I'm open to offers, I said, hoping to break the tension. He turned slowly, and the grin that spread across his face made my stomach twist. Too wide, too many teeth, like he'd been waiting for me to speak. 100, he said. I laughed, though it came out hollow and uneasy. That's way too low. I could maybe go down to 1,000. The grin vanished instantly. His lips pressed into a tight line, and he stared, just stared, without blinking. Then he began muttering, not to me, but under his breath, like he was arguing with some unseen presence. His hands went to his head, pressing against the sides of his skull, fingers clawing at his hair. He paced, muttering fragments of sentences I could only catch in pieces, always lying, tricking, numbers wrong again. You said, I froze, my throat tight. Sir, I think it's best we call it a night, I said, taking a cautious step toward the front door. I appreciate you coming out. He didn't move. Not a muscle. Sir? Please, it's late. I tried, forcing my voice to sound firmer. Then his hand moved toward his back pocket. Something about that motion triggered a pure, blind panic in me. I bolted upstairs 2 steps at a time, my heart slamming against my ribs so hard I thought it might burst. I didn't hear anything behind me. No footsteps, no voice, just the heavy silence of the house. I slid into my closet, yanking my .45 from its case. I loaded it quickly, crouched behind the door, my hands slick with sweat. Peeking through the crack, I saw nothing in the hallway. I crept closer to the stairs, still empty. Finally, I made it back to my room, locked the door, and whispered into the phone to the police, explaining everything in rapid, halting sentences. They told me to stay put. A car was on the way. I pressed myself behind the bed, trying to slow my heartbeat, which felt like it was trying to rip itself out of my chest. Minutes stretched unbearably. Then in the distance, sirens. My body refused to move. I didn't even breathe until I heard boots on the hardwood floor and a voice. Police. Call out if you're in the house. I stepped into the hallway, hands raised, voice shaking. Here. They found me immediately. I showed my ID, repeated the story, each detail sticking in my throat like broken glass. They made me step outside into the driveway. Barefoot, clutching the gun still, I watched as 2 officers swept the house. 5 minutes later, they emerged, not alone. The man was between them in handcuffs. He didn't resist, didn't speak, just walked like a puppet on strings. The officer looked at me, pale. He was hiding in your pantry, armed with a loaded revolver. I couldn't respond. My legs felt like jelly. They placed him in the cruiser. As the car pulled away, he turned, eyes locking on me through the window. That look, I still see it when I close my eyes. Pure hate and malice, as if I had ruined some carefully twisted plan, as if he would remember every detail of me forever. That night, I changed all the locks. The next day, I installed a security system. I don't answer Craigslist messages anymore. I'm even thinking about selling the farmhouse and leaving Marlow Creek behind entirely. But no matter how far I go, I know he'll be out there someday. And that look, I'll never forget it. I've sold plenty of random junk online over the years. Old TVs, busted lawnmowers, a couple of beat-up laptops, even a couch with a snapped leg. But nothing has ever stuck with me like the time I tried selling my old car on Craigslist. Back then, I was living alone in a rental in Maplewood, Oregon, a sleepy, rain-soaked suburb where nothing much ever happened. The kind of place where people still left their porch lights off without worrying. It was early 2016. I had just bought a newer car, a silver 2013 Accord, and my old black Sentra was sitting in the driveway under a steady layer of pine needles. It still ran fine. Not great to look at, but it got from A to B. Money wasn't a crushing issue, but I'd just crawled out of a bad breakup and was trying to rebuild my life piece by piece. My ex had taken half the furniture, and the house felt hollow in more ways than one. Selling the Sentra felt smarter than trading it in. I knew a dealership would lowball me, and Craigslist seemed like the best chance at getting a halfway decent price. Back then, Craigslist was simpler. None of the security features or verification hoops they've added since. You just threw up a post, left your number, and waited. I uploaded 6 photos I'd snapped on my phone, wrote out the details, mileage, condition, oil change, new tires, and listed it at $2,500. The first few days were a mess of flaky responses. One guy texted offering me $900, which I ignored. Another swore he'd come by in the morning, then ghosted. A woman actually called and sounded serious, but stopped responding as soon as I asked if she wanted to set up a time. It was irritating, but I wasn't in a rush. On the 5th day, a text buzzed in. "Still have the car?" I replied, "Yeah, still available." The guy shot back, I'm interested." That was it. No name, no questions, no back and forth about mileage or condition, just those 2 words. "Want to come check it out?" I asked. "Yes." I followed with when, then, nothing. Silence. Another dead lead, I figured. Almost a week passed. I stopped thinking much about the ad and started planning to just haul the Sentra down to a used lot. Maybe take the loss. Then one night, Wednesday, around 10:15 p.m., I was slouched on the couch watching something brainless on Netflix. The house was quiet, lights dimmed, the kind of evening where your guard is all the way down. My phone buzzed. It was a text from that same number. But it wasn't words this time. It was a photo of my Sentra parked in the driveway. My gut twisted. This wasn't one of the pictures I'd uploaded with the ad. I knew that instantly. This was taken now. The porch light was glowing in the background. The driveway was wet from the drizzle, and stuck to the windshield was a damp yellow leaf that I'd noticed earlier that evening when I came home. Someone had just taken this photo. Someone was outside my house. I felt the blood drain from my face. My hands went cold as I typed back, "Are you at my house right now?" The reply came instantly, like he was waiting. "I'm here to look at the car." "Where are you?" No name, no explanation. Just that, I froze, staring at the screen. My mind scrambled. How the hell did he find me? I'd been careful. My address wasn't on the listing. I double-checked that when I first posted it. We'd never arranged to meet, and I had never texted him my location. My thumbs shook as I typed, "I didn't give you my address." "How did you find me?" No reply. A few seconds later, the sound came. 3 sharp knocks at the front door. Not frantic, not polite, just firm. My chest felt like it was caving in. I crept into the hallway, careful to stay out of view of the window near the door. My pulse was hammering in my ears. I had nothing to defend myself with. No gun, no bat, nothing but my bare hands. And I sure as hell wasn't opening that door. I called the number. It rang twice, then cut off like someone had declined it. Almost instantly, the knocking started again, louder this time. 4 quick, deliberate thuds followed by silence. I forced myself toward the side window, every step feeling like it might betray me. The blinds were shut, but I eased one slat open just enough to peek. A man was standing on my porch. Mid to late 30s, stocky, medium height, hoodie pulled up, face shadowed, posture stiff and uneasy, like he wasn't sure why he was even there. He wasn't holding his phone. He wasn't looking at the Sentra. He just stood there, still and wrong, like an unfinished thought. I backed away, heart pounding so loud I thought he'd hear it. My breaths came shallow and fast, and my thumbs shook as I typed, "This is not okay. I never gave you my address. You need to leave." No reply. I stood in the kitchen, clutching the counter edge like it could anchor me. My mind raced. Do I call the cops? What would I even say? Some guy from Craigslist showed up at my house? By the time anyone came, he'd be gone. Then bang. A metallic crash from outside, sharp enough to jolt me backward. A second later, the low growl of an engine, tires crunching gravel. Then silence. I didn't move. Not for 5 full minutes. When I finally crept to the front window and pulled the blinds, he was gone. The street was empty, the night still. I opened the front door carefully, scanning the yard. Nothing looked touched. But when I walked to the driveway, my stomach sank. On the Sentra's driver's side door was a fresh dent. Not huge, but deep enough, right in the center. The kind of mark someone makes with the heel of a boot. The next morning, I filed a report with Craigslist, blocked the number, and deleted the listing. I didn't even bother with the police. I had nothing. No name, no license plate, no solid evidence. Just a stranger in a hoodie who had stood on my porch like he owned it. That same day, I ordered a set of security cameras online. A week later, I caved and sold the Sentra to a dealership for $1,300. Way less than I'd hoped, but I didn't care. I just wanted it gone. I couldn't stand looking at it in the driveway anymore. Months passed. Life crept back into normal rhythms, and the whole thing dulled in my memory, until almost a year later. One night I was scrolling through a Reddit thread about Craigslist horror stories. Half curious, half masochistic, when I read a comment that froze me. I knew this guy back in Portland who used to get people's addresses off photos. He'd look for reflections, street signs, background clues, and Craigslist pics. Then he'd show up pretending he had a meeting. If nobody answered, he'd mess with the car or the house. Thought it was funny. I think he got arrested a while back. My blood ran cold. I didn't reply. I didn't want to feed it. But I couldn't stop thinking about what they said. Street signs, reflections, clues. I dug up the old photos from my Centra listing. In one of them, just barely visible in the corner of the windshield, was the faint reflection of a green street sign across the road. You couldn't read the whole thing, but it was enough. Combine that with the beige siding of my rental, the sloping driveway, the shape of the porch light. If someone really wanted to, they could piece it together. And he had. Since then, I've still sold things online, but never from home. No license plates, no landmarks in the background. Nothing that could give away where I live. Every meeting happens in a crowded parking lot with cameras overhead. Because some people really do just want to buy a car. Some want to scare the hell out of you, and some you'll never understand what they were after.